Welcome to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thanks for joining us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alan Kornhauser. Hi again, Alan.
Hey, good afternoon, Fred. Good afternoon, everyone.
Alan, lots of news to get to, but first, some exciting things on the horizon with the 4th annual Princeton Smart Driving Cars Summit finally getting underway this coming week. Of course, it will be virtual, and the format is going to be very different, but it's one that makes a lot of sense.
Right. As is obvious to everybody, we must physically distance and we can't get together. So we're doing this on Zoom. We've been talking about it for some time. We've been waiting for things to improve. Let's hope they're at least stable. But we're finally launching it. So basically what we've decided to do is, instead of doing it over 2.5 days, which has been our norm, we've decided to spread this out over time. And basically we're going to do a total of 16 weekly sessions. The first one will start next Thursday. They will be on Thursdays. They will be at the same time. They will be live. They will be on Zoom. And what we're hopeful to do in these sessions is to generate some discussion and really engagement by the audience. So the format is that we will have basically a moderator with a few panelists, a handful of panelists, 3 to 4. To basically, the moderator will then set the stage for the topic that will be discussed in that weekly session. And then the panelists will then bring in their views for 7 to 10 minutes each to basically focus their particular views. And then we hope to open it up to discussions with the live audience. So the objective here very much is to have engagement with the audience. This is what we always were striving for when we did it live. It wasn't to be a one-way transfer of information from the poobahs on the front to the basic minions, in the audience, but really everybody that we expect to be tuning in to these things are experts in themselves on these topics, and we want them to weigh in, and we want to try to do this in that way. The topics are not that they're set in stone and we know the answers. I mean, the things we already know the answer to, we know that. The big challenge with this technology is what we don't know, or what we haven't basically made absolutely the decision as to the way to approach it. And to me, that's the interesting piece of this, is that we'll be discussing really the things and try to get to know better the things that we don't know. So that's the format.
And people have become so accustomed to using Zoom today and using the chats, the comments, and we'll try to bring some people on, at least their voices, to be able to ask some questions live.
Absolutely, we'll some on. So the sessions are again on Thursdays. The first one being this coming Thursday, and then the next one will start on the first Thursday of January. So we'll take the break for the holidays. What I intend to do and what we intend to do on next Thursday's session is really to set the stage and discuss with the audience, both present to the audience and discuss with the audience what we're trying to do and the topics that we intend to address over the following 15 sessions that will take us from January through the middle of April. Once a week, Thursdays, noon Eastern time. Noon Eastern time is lunch at Eastern. If we could send you a lunch, we'd send you a lunch. Hopefully you'll bring your lunch and sit with us. For the folks in California, a little, well, breakfast, I don't know, depending on when you get to work, whatever, 9 o'clock, it's like breakfast. For the folks in Europe, it's going to be, happy hour. So, take it easy on happy hour, but you can join us for happy hour. And in Asia, it's like, midnight snack time. So I think it's a good period it's a good time. I think others have discovered this time to do live sessions such that you can both hit the East Coast and West Coast of the U.S., hit Europe. Europe, and the continent, they have dinner late, U.S. we have it at 5 o'clock or something like that. Or I always go the early one, where it's cheaper, not discount. I can't say that, but and on the continent, it's later. So this is, perfect for them during basically happy hour before dinner. And then in Asia, before they get tucked in to go to bed, they can listen and participate with us. Why not? I think it's a good time to do it.
So how can people participate? How can people join in?
Well, for the first one, we will have available a login, a Zoom login, and everybody can join in. So there's no real registration, or I don't know, we're still going to details as to whether or not you do have to register to get this. But I think we can just send it out and you can click in and come on the first one. For the rest of them, there is a registration process that's on the website for the summit, and you register. And there are various registration levels. There's a free, there's a very inexpensive one, and a little bit nothing that's going to put people in the poorhouse. But there are expenses associated with doing this. It isn't free. It doesn't come for free. And, we think that, of course, the registration fees are really quite modest. And in some sense, if it's not worth that, then, geez, your time is much more valuable than what is being charged here. So we want to have people who are really into this, who really want to basically work on finding solutions and approaches to the things that we still haven't nailed down yet.
It sounds like it will certainly be worthwhile, and I know I'm looking forward to it. And get started once again this Thursday at noon Eastern, and people should go to smartdrivingcar.com to get more info.
Right, that's where you can get the info. That's where the schedule is for each of the sessions, and the sessions are basically, the first one is basically a sort of a futurist view and look into the future to make sure that really what we're trying to do here is not just create technology for technology's sake, but really to provide value to society. And in fact, the approach here is we're really looking at two major thrusts with this. One thrust is associated with making the vehicles that we drive and when we drive them safer on our streets and roadways. And applying the technology to when we're still engaged in at least some of the driving activities. And so that's the one thrust. And then the second thrust is to look at how do we use this technology to provide affordable mobility to essentially everybody within an operational design domain. So yes, when one suggests that we're going to, the objective is to provide affordable mobility to everybody, it's not the everywhere piece is not attached to that. When and if we ever get to the everywhere piece, who knows? We can debate that a little bit, but I don't think there's much of unknown on that one. As I like to say, I can't drive my car, my conventional car down the riverbeds and up the Great Wall, even though maybe the automobile manufacturers kind of give me advertisements that suggest that I might be able to do that and have that fantasy. That fantasy really doesn't exist. But let's get away from the fantasies and let's really provide mobility to folks who want to go from A to B in at least a designated area. And let's do that and do it affordably. The affordable piece. Why is that important? Otherwise, you have to go there with asking for a handout. You have to go around Washington. Alms for the poor. I mean, come on, that's no way to do this.
Well, I know you've been working on lining up some great moderators and panels for this too. So a lot of work goes into it.
So all that comes into it, but basically the first one will be the visionary, and then we go into the details, and we really go in and look at the cars that are available in the showroom today and how good are they at doing at improving safety, and how good are they really at doing the automated emergency braking systems, and how are they being sold and promoted, and how is this really being delivered to actually deliver to society in a safer mobility, and then go on and through that to then deal with the whole driverless business. How do you finally decide to throw away the security blanket and say, yep, we're going to do this, and we're going to let the technology do the driving, and actually get there and deal with all the various aspects of that. So that will take us, through January, February, March, and half of April. So it's not that it's, it's almost like a course. It's not a course. It's really an engagement of the audience, and I'm really excited about it. I think we're really focusing on the issues, on really what we don't know very well and how to get to know that better.
Thursday at noon, and even before the summit, Alan, we expect to be joined by Chris Urmson this coming Tuesday for a special edition of Smart Driving Cars. Chris is the CEO of Aurora, the Silicon Valley autonomous vehicle startup that this week announced a deal to take over Uber's self-driving car project. And Uber will be investing $400 million in Aurora. So this is a big move, a lot of details, pretty intricate here, and very interesting.
Yeah, and it's really great to have Chris on board because, Chris, essentially from the beginning of all this, Chris led the Carnegie Mellon team in the DARPA challenges, which, we seem to agree that that's really the real change in the focus of all this technology. Of automation, instead of doing automated highways where you're basically exclusive highways and automated vehicles, where in some sense it's pretty easy to do all this. So that's the good news. The bad news is you have to go out and build an automated highway. And who's going to do that if you don't have automated vehicles? And who's going to build the automated vehicles if you don't have any automated highways? So that chicken and egg situation that existed, at least since 1939, if not before, and so on with that technology was dead on arrival. It had no chance of evolving. But then with the DARPA challenges, the sort of the realization that in fact maybe it's possible to put enough intelligence in a vehicle, just do it for one, that's able to go out there and perform really well, no problem, with all of us still out there, and make use of the existing infrastructure. So Chris, from the very beginning, from when he started at Waymo, at least that's maybe he'll say, no, that's not true to us, but that's what I believe. You really believed in this concept that my goodness, go out there and essentially work on one vehicle, get it to work. If you got that to work, then really beautiful thing about this is replicate. And when you look at the cost of replication, it's essentially zero. So in a sense, all you got to do is get one to work. And now there are details and so on and so forth, but at least you don't have to go begging to, hey, oh my, I need an infrastructure project. Oh, President Biden, please give us money to build a whole new highway. I mean, kidding me? Go up and try to get Goldman Sachs to give you the money. I mean, come on. Nobody's going to do that.
All the money's been spent during this pandemic anyway. So
yeah, well, I mean, sure, great, yeah, wonderful, sure, it's a good thing. It's it's like maybe what we did in the Depression. Maybe you could argue with it, with maybe doing it.
Right.
I don't
Get
know,
people to work.
But my goodness, I don't know.
Well, this is really going to be a great discussion with Chris. Again, this coming Tuesday, you'll really want to keep an eye out for that on Tuesday, and you keep an eye on Smart Driving Car, and you'll get more information, car.com, and you'll get more information too about the summit at the same time. Meanwhile, there's another Uber headline. They've sold their air taxi effort, which was called Elevate, to Joby Aviation. And Uber's investing $75 million into that company, which is developing an electric passenger aircraft with vertical takeoff and landing. And Alan's making faces here.
Well, I don't know. Sell. It seems to me, you took something that you had and you moved it over here, and you put money with it when you moved it over there. But did we see much money going back to from the person who got it? I mean, so this is, that's seemed to me they gave it away, invested, and said, hey, here, you make it, okay? Everybody always has a make or buy decision, right?
And they keep a stake in it so they can make use of it if it happens to be successful. And
hey, if it happens to be successful, then I'm sure there are some, details in whatever the agreement is that they get, first dibs at attractive prices and so on, probably, and so on and so forth. And so therefore, but in the meantime, while someone else is going through all the blood, sweat, and tears to actually make it happen, they're out doing the thing that they really should be doing, is out there looking to provide mobility to people who, I mean, the beauty of what Uber has done is that it has provided mobility to an enormous number of folks who really had terrible access to mobility in the past, and really improved their quality of life. The only problem is of course they're doing it, they have to pay somebody to do that, and that's not inexpensive. And luckily, a number of people have decided to, price themselves in that market such that it's made it attractive to the traveling public. But whether or not the folks who are actually doing the delivery of the mobility are actually getting, a good quality of life out of their engagement and their employment, seems to be, what a lot of discussion has been had about that in recent times. And so that's sort of the bad news associated with the Uber Lyft mobility proposition. And of course, what we've been arguing here for some time is all of a sudden, if you can deliver that now with a computer doing this, with cameras and the LiDARs too, whatever, radars, in the end, all that stuff is, as we've said many times, that's all Moore's law-ish. And that's really great. That stuff gets, improves, it gets twice as good and half the price every whatever number of years. And so
they will have a stake in Aurora, hoping to make that happen.
Yeah, so that's really, when one looks at it, they then may be able to, instead of being forced to make it themselves, to have access to it. They're standing first in line with Aurora to have access to it. And access to that technology probably at a very attractive price. Again, the details that must be in that agreement, whether or not we get to see it or not, apply are there. So instead of them, going knocking on the doors of Aurora and said, "Hey, please, we'd like to get this," and Aurora said, "Well, you've got to pay me basically the value that you're going to derive from it, as opposed to what it's cost us plus some profit." Those are two different prices, and all of a sudden they have a chance to get that technology at a very attractive price, a price that's they must have decided is likely to be a heck of a lot less than them making it. One always has the maker buy choice, and they must have looked at this and said, "Oh my goodness, instead of us making it, we're going to be able to buy it. Otherwise, you don't make that transaction."
And they learned some hard lessons trying to do it themselves too. That turned out tragically.
It's a non-easy thing. It is a non-easy thing, and that's what part of the things that we'll discuss during the summit. This is not easy.
We'll be back with more, but first, this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website there, find the white paper. It's called The Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. Great information there to help you make informed decisions. You may know ETFs can be a smart way to spread risk with investments, focus on a particular category of stocks too. The site again is motoetf.com. More headlines to cover, Alan. Cruise, which is affiliated with GM and Honda, says it is now testing fully driverless cars without a safety driver behind the wheel. That's a key phrase, behind the wheel, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess they're at least being truthful. Okay. But all of a sudden, you've got to say, "Oh my goodness, I can't all of a sudden take what I hear and imagine what I'd hoped." Okay, which was what someone had hoped is there's no attendant in the car, in the vehicle. Yet, if you read a little farther down, it says explicitly there's an attendant in the vehicle. With
not behind the wheel
and all that stuff. So who cares if they're behind the wheel or not behind the wheel? Whatever. Okay, they're sitting there with a joystick or something, but that's not driverless. That if the objective of driverless is to do affordable mobility, okay, then you can't incur the cost of the driver. Okay, or you have to make the driver a slave and pay him nothing.
But we're not saying we aren't saying they shouldn't be testing it this way, though. We're not saying that at all.
Oh, absolutely. Testing. Of course you test this way. You have somebody in there. Of course you do. Absolutely. Why? I mean, if they're not doing it, they're not doing anything. Great. That's just like being driverless. Okay. But at least you're in there to something should happen because you're not good enough. But if you're doing it, which means, the scale is how many cars they have, whatever the number is they have there, for this to be a viable business, you have to go 1,000x, 10,000x, 1,000,000x. Okay. Maybe not quite 1,000,000x, 100,000x. Okay. Whatever. Okay. You got to do that. And therefore you can't afford to have the attendant in there, except for rich people. We really want to do this for rich people. They got so darn many ways they'll go in their Bentleys. I mean, what the hell? Cut it out.
Or maybe they'll take that. They'll take the air taxi down.
Oh, take the air taxi. Great. Go for it. Wonderful. Okay. Anyway, so one has to be careful what one's trying to do here.
It's right? A step is what this is.
to,
that
to,
they're
to,
reporting.
to be, to really do something different, to be disruptive, I think you have to be affordable. That's the disruptive, because we've had chauffeured mobility probably since Benz in 1886, if not, Downton Abbey in 1920. One always could have a chauffeur and to the D, da, 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 and B to the two. Okay? If you had enough money. But and if that's the market you're looking for, fine, do it. But that's not what I think makes this a disruptive technology that really improves quality of life to not the 1%ers, to the lower 60%, the lower 30%, the lower 50%. Lower 50%, is what, I guess, 165 million people in the United States, I guess. Or maybe it's, like Princeton, all the students are 80% above average. Stupid. Never mind. You don't want to go there.
Well, from the Federal Register, Alan, NHTSA is requesting comment on the development of a framework for automated driving systems safety. The framework would objectively define, assess, and manage the safety of ADS performance while ensuring the needed flexibility to enable further innovation. And you've got some comments in the newsletter.
Yeah, I think if there's anything that the audience reads, they should spend quality time reading the 18 pages of that posting in the Federal Register, because it really describes in detail the challenge that NHTSA, or whatever it is, the public oversight entity to this technology, is going to need to do to provide, to, in one sense, protect the public on the safety piece, and on another sense, promote this technology for all the valuable contributions that this technology has the opportunity to deliver to society. I mean, the reason this is being done is really at least I argue, that's why I'm involved in it, is I really believe this technology has the opportunity to substantially improve the quality of life of many. That's a good thing to do. But of course, you can't just do it like a loose cannon on a deck or whatever. You've got to be responsible on the one hand, and the responsibility is on the safety piece. So in a sense, this lays it out very well. It even suggests that maybe NHTSA is not the right entity to do this, and a separate entity is needed. It really leaves it quite open, as opposed to saying, hey, this is how we want to regulate. They're really, to me, they're really asking for there are a lot of things they don't know, and they'd like to get answers to the things they don't know. I think what is missing from this, although probably assumed, is a better definition of an operational design domain. Because all this has to do with, where are you going to do this? And if the objective is, with all this stuff, to do it everywhere, then I don't think we have a chance. I mean, then it's, Sunday supplement, political, whatever, No, but how do you find the places where you can actually do it? So we know we can do automation in shafts and buildings. That's the elevator. We know we can do automation if we just put rails and make sure it's in the tunnel and protect it and so on. Those are people movers at airports. We did it at Morgantown in 1975. We automated system. Safety record of that is absolutely phenomenal, beautiful. But it's not out there in the public roadway with children playing ball. Okay, and I think the challenge here is how do you do this, in public roadways where most of the people want to like use to travel, and there happen to be children playing ball, and you've got to do that. And so how do you do that? And also there doesn't seem to be the realization, or maybe that's just my interpretation as I read it, the real realization that the safety issue with respect to highway transportation today is really, it's a behavioral problem of the driver. It's not the drivers aren't good drivers. Everybody is an outstanding driver. Essentially, everybody is an outstanding driver when they're paying attention, when they're not misbehaving. Okay, and the problem comes, the safety problem is one of misbehavior. It's the behavioral element of the driver in the transportation that is leading to the safety problem. So in some sense, I think one can argue, if one wants to deal with safety in an automated system, just make them as good, if you can, as a driver is when they're not misbehaving, and don't let them misbehave. I mean, that takes away 90, if 90 some percent of blah, 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 whatever it tends to be quoted is caused by human, they call it human error. It's human misbehavior. It's people texting, misbehavior. Okay, it's people speeding, misbehavior. Okay, it's people having adult beverages, it's misbehavior. It's people falling asleep, it's misbehavior. It's people with road rage, it's misbehavior. These automated systems aren't going to have a road rage. They aren't going to drink alcoholic beverages. They might have a blue screen every once in a while, so we got to deal with it. So they may fall asleep or something, but okay, we got to deal with that one. All right. They aren't going to run red lights unless why stop? There's nobody coming. Okay, they aren't going to speed or speed excessively such that and whatever. And that's not brought out well enough in this. Okay, so now the question is how do you put these things in a vehicle that somebody is, you're not going to ask them to buy it, I don't think. We're just going to ask them to ride in it. Okay, because we know they won't buy it. The first thing, if they buy it, first thing they're going to do is they're going to clip all the wires that keep them, that allow them this, the now speed. They'll allow them to drink and drive. That will allow them to fall asleep. That will allow them So heck, you can't sell it to an individual. They won't buy it, I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I would imagine that all the OEMs would have gone out there and sold these cars to us if any of us would have gone out and bought them. But the madmen, what they do, they're madmen. We're out there drinking, three drinks at lunchtime and then driving. And they were, speeding here and speeding there and doing donuts on their neighbors' lawns and putting them in the advertising. I mean, how many car ads do you see on TV in which, fine print, the Mercedes ad, all these cars going, plowing through some desert with all kinds of whatever flying around, or deep snow, Santa's reindeers. Come on. Building that fantasy. Oh, I can do that too. Boom. Anyway, so I think, and in fact, NHTSA may have a model for this to do it. Because if you look at the electronic stability control that they basically nurtured through the whole process that they're talking about here, and in fact made it mandatory on all models after 2012 or whatever the date is. If you look at what that system does, is it's an automated system in the vehicle that lets me misbehave. And as soon as I get myself to a point where that misbehavior can cause me problems, it kicks in and says, forget it. I'm taking over the braking and the steering to keep you from losing your rear end and going off the road. I'm not going to ask you. I'm just going to do it. That's what the stability control systems do. Okay? I start going around that corner too fast. In the environmental conditions that exist now, the sensors figure it out. You're going too fast. If it wasn't raining, you'd be okay. We wouldn't do anything. But it's raining, therefore we're cutting in. We're not going to let you do it.
And then you start adding in things like the lane keeping, the braking, etc.
I think, okay, I think it's worth looking at that model of that one and expanding it not to all the other misbehaviors. Okay. And I think the history and the data and the reporting and so on, I'm sure people will bring it out and say, hey, you know, it has worked. Okay. And and this system doesn't say, hey, I can't hit the gas. Sure, go ahead and hit the gas. But if you start losing it, guess what? I'm controlling, not I'm. I mean, the computer is going to control the gas. The computer is going to control the brake. The computer is going to redistribute the torque, redistribute the brake to keep me from losing my butt. Beautiful. Okay. Now, as a concept, I don't see that really being brought out as a measure there, but maybe, you know.
Another story. Bloomberg is reporting that Apple is putting the head of Siri and artificial intelligence in charge of its secretive self-driving car project. I thought they got rid of that. The so-called Project Titan. This report says the executive, John Giandrea, I think that's how it's pronounced, reports directly to CEO Tim Cook. So Apple is still baking something up here.
I don't know. I guess. I guess. I don't know. They don't need to tell anybody, I guess, right? Until they have something that they're trying to sell. Okay. Now, whether or not they're out there far enough and the thing it works well enough that they're trying to sell it, who knows?
They must be doing it underground or something if they're doing it.
You know, I guess they're doing
Nobody's seeing anything.
Well, you can, of course they could. They have that big spaceship. What are they doing in the spaceship? Maybe it's in the center of the spaceship. Maybe they're running it around the spaceship or something. I don't know. I guess who knows?
Yeah, but employees and ex-employees would have seen it. So
yeah,
this is pretty, they're pretty good at keeping secrets.
Yeah, they are, and wonderful. And as soon as they're far enough along that somebody might use it to deliver some societal benefits, I'm sure we'll hear about it. Okay. And until then, great, have a ball. Wonderful.
On the subject of spaceships, Elon Musk had another successful launch this week of the SpaceX Starship, even though there was kind of an explosive crash landing at the end.
Well, I've been watching launches since Vanguard in, I don't know, 1958 or something like that. They actually had them on TV. I watch them.
Well, I built the plastic model.
The Starship was the best launch. I had the good fortune of being live at Cape Canaveral for the launch of Apollo 11, and that was a great one. But then I've watched a lot of them on TV. But this one was really phenomenal. It was phenomenal. In the early stages of the development of the Starship, really, for them to be able to not only launch that thing, I mean, they had a couple of scrubs and they had to move along. It launched, what, 3 days later, something like that. So what, launch, shut down one of the engines and continue to be able to throttle the other two so that it continued to go straight up, and then, shut down another one and continue up with one of them again. You got to keep that thrust vector through the center of mass and do all that. And then to bring that thing down, flip it, fly it. And just before it came to the ground, turn it, ignite it. I haven't seen what the impact velocity was, but I don't know. I would suspect it was probably less than 25 miles an hour or something like that. And it looked to me, again, I haven't had a chance to follow up and see and read any of the postmortems. It looked like the launch pad, it hit the corner of the launch of where it was trying to sit down, and therefore may have just, on that corner, just collapsed and led to the explosion. Or I don't know, maybe it, but it just missed by this, it looked like to me. To be able to do all that. Oh, I mean,
he's been doing it over and over. This was just a bigger scale, right?
I mean, to actually be able to pull it off and do it, the number of things that have to work well. I mean, really work well. All the various thrusters on Starship to be able to turn it, to actually have modeled the aerodynamics properly so that in fact you can flip it and even get it to, really come down on its tail just before it hits whatever. I mean, you really have to do a darn good job. Okay. I don't know. You do that for a homework exercise. I'll give you a 99, you won't get 100, might even convince me to give you an A+. I mean, I was, but again, I'm distant from all that stuff. Used to be close to it many years ago, in some previous life. But they get that thing to work, which is very close to it. They can refuel it in low Earth orbit. They can fuel it up. They can launch that to Mars. Whether or not they can get enough of them to Mars, so that at Mars you can then get enough water out of the ground and actually prepare some methane and so on, so that you can manufacture some fuel to get the heck back. We'll wait and see. But man, this is. I just thought, wow.
He says he's going.
He says he's going, and I think I commented a number of years ago when I first learned of his approach, when he gave this talk in Australia at the International Astronomical Conference. Seemed to me that the approach, one, the reusability of the launch vehicles, key. Again, try to make it affordable. I mean, can you imagine what we did in the Apollo program? We took that giant thing, the F1 engines. I mean, guess what? You used them once. Then you had to make new ones. Whoa. And then you had to lift all this stuff at one time into low Earth orbit before you then could do the transfer to the moon. As opposed to lifting it up, putting it in low Earth orbit, and then all the fuel that you need to get to do the Hohmann transfer to Mars. I mean, you can fill her up, pick them up, pick them up, pick them up. Now you're launching from low Earth orbit. Oh, whatever, aerodynamic into Mars. Set it down. I don't know. whatever.
Exciting times.
I think so. Yeah, it really is. I mean, I watch their launches of the Starlink satellites. You know, and they're putting up, what's he put up, over 1,000 satellites to do basically Wi-Fi.
Yeah, global internet service. Right?
You know, wireless communications around the world from anywhere. The whole LEO, the low Earth orbit concept of doing communications. I mean, get up, down. I mean, actually a shorter way than putting it on a cable and under the oceans and over the whatever.
Well, we've got one more story. Finally, Arizona State University student Joel Johnson has reportedly taken over 60 driverless Waymo rides and posted more than a dozen videos online. I've sent him an email hoping he's going to join us for a chat. Don't know if we got the right email, but we're trying. Interesting kid.
We really want to get him on there. I mean, I think if he's taken that many rides as a member of the public, I'd like to hear, what he has to say. And so that's why we want to bring him on here. At the same time, I guess one of his, not a classmate, one of my students, Louis Aaron, who is also from Phoenix, is now an intern at. He's taken a year off because of COVID from Princeton. He's at the Boring Company, and apparently he's going to take his
Elon Musk tunnel.
Yeah, he's going to take his test this coming week to be a driver of one of the Teslas in that tunnel. And hopefully we can have them both on, and we can hear what the younger generation has to say about all this from again the mobility point of view. I mean, what does it deliver on the mobility? We've been dealing with the technology and with the details of that technology, blah blah blah. But what about the end product? What about which is really why we're doing? We're not doing this. I hope we're not doing this to develop gizmos. We're doing this to actually deliver value to society, and large, maybe this a little smaller end of it at Las Vegas. And so, how are we doing with respect to that part of it? And that's also one of the topics that we will spend one of the weeks on the summit on is the design of these vehicles for mobility of all. So I guess we sort of know what we want. We want Corinthian leather and Apple Play and whatever. I don't know. And we sort of know what the physically challenged part of society wants, because they've told us a number of times, and I don't know we've necessarily paid attention. We sort of know what the elderly want. Again, if we've paid proper attention, we sort of know what the blind want, but we have to listen and pay sort of attention. Well, I don't think we've listened to what the poor want. And I hope somehow we can focus. I mean, it seems to me that we just assume they'll take whatever we give them. That's ugly. In fact, this to me, this is the opportunity for the folks that haven't had opportunity to have good mobility, or what this mobility is for. And we really need to embrace them and ask them, what would you like? You really want CarPlay? Do you really want Apple Babadoo-da-da-dee? Corinthian leather? Really? I don't know. I don't think the madmen ever asked them. I guess they can say, hey, that's not what they were being paid to do. But my goodness, this one's different. So somehow we've got to, and I don't know how to do that. Okay. I wish I did, but I don't.
Well, again, it's going to be one of the focuses of the
Yeah.
upcoming Smart Driving Car Summit, which, a reminder again, gets underway this Thursday at noon live. Go to smartdrivingcar.com for more info. So thank you so much to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and more information is available at motoetf.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. Your smart speaker can play us too. And you can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alan Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and please stay safe.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon. We'll see you live.